In this video, I am going to take a previous project that I did on my CNC that was in my last video, and if you want to take a look at that project before viewing this one, you can check up in either that corner or that corner, whichever one turns out. I'm going to put a card in there that you can link to it and go watch that first. But what I want to do is take that CNC project, which was this Easter resurrection scene that I developed, and I want to go ahead and transfer that into a laser ready project. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. If that's what you're interested in, then stick around and I'll show you. Let's discuss what's going to be in this video. Here's a quick overview of what's going to be in the video and what's not going to be in the video. First of all, we're going to review and preview the previous CNC jobs. Then we're going to go over detailed design considerations for the Lightburn project. What we're not going to do is actually go through the cutting process and the several iterations of cutting different slot sizes. If you are interested in all the detailed cutting and slot sizing to the final version of the project and how you see it cut right to the very end, let me know and I'm willing to put out a video on that. It's just that I wasn't sure how many people would be interested, and this video was already getting long in the tooth. There is so much learning to be gathered by watching through the design process if you're somewhat new to Lightburn. Whether you're interested in watching the whole detailed video or not, well, let me share the tools I'm going to be going over as I go through the detailed design process. I've put a list of them up over here, and not only that, if you go down to the More section of this video, there are time mark stamps for each of these tools you see over here on the screen right now. So if you've ever wanted to learn more about any of these tools, this would be a good video to watch, or at least go to those timestamps. With that, let's go ahead and review the CNC and laser projects so you can see what they're going to look like, and then we can get into the detailed design and you can decide how much of that you want to watch. This is how the CNC project turned out. Each individual in its own little slot. They're pretty sturdy. And the stone going back and forth in front of the open tomb, that's what that represents. And each of these have their own slots so that everything fits together nice and tight. My goal is to do the same thing with the laser in Lightburn Software, taking the file from vCarve into Lightburn. Well, I've previously cut that project in Lightburn after I did the design, and I came up with two different versions as I was testing the project out. The first version I cut was this one, and I put a slotting mechanism in it where, let me pull this apart, the back piece slotted in the back, and then the two front pieces set on the material. So we've got one slot, that piece fits in there, and the problem with that was that it seems a bit loose here, and I really didn't like that, so I changed that in this version, and I'll show you what I do here in a second. And so then this fits in here, and the rest of it works out well. I just didn't like the way this back piece fit, and you can see this stone moves, but it's very, very loose. And I didn't like that, and then this cross goes up here. And so it looks pretty good. You'll see that I put texture marks, and you'll hear me talk about that in the video. I put texture marks up front, and that's just to kind of give it more of a stone look. And what I did was I painted it gray first, and then after the gray paint dried, I put the texture marks in so that I wouldn't have to worry about painting over the black texture marks. So that's how I did this project right here, and I was pretty happy with how it looks, but again, I didn't like the wiggleness of this, and you notice the bases are different. This is just a square block base, and the base on the next project, the one I'm demonstrating in the video, looks more like a stone front. So now let's check out the differences. In this model, you will see that each of these pieces are separate, so the slots are slightly different. And that was based on the stuff I learned with the CNC model. So I placed this one in, a little loose because of some slot adjustments I had to do, but in the end it'll be nice and tight. And then I placed the smaller rock in place, And what I do is, this is where a lot of testing came in. I had to make sure the space right here between this back rock and the front rock was just enough to fit this other boulder in a snug fashion. And so this one's not nearly as shifty as the one that I did over here. You'll also notice that I haven't taken the time to put the marks on there. I show how to do that in the design, but I don't know that I'm actually going to do that. I think I might leave this plain, and instead of using the gray and painting everything, I'm going to use some stain with slightly different colors. And then, as you can see, the boulder slides back and forth there just like I wanted it to. And then these actually fit in tighter with the slot sizes that I adjusted. And this still needs some marks put on it to make it look like boulders. And here we go. This is what this one looks like when it's all said and done, and this back piece will be tighter than it is in this version. Again, I was doing some slot adjustments. In the end, this will be the file that you will actually get if you request the file off my website with the coupon code that I'm going to give you. With that, let's get started into the design. I do want to emphasize one more time that I'm going to go through in detail, because last time I left a couple things out in the CNC one trying to make the video go along faster, and I got feedback from some of my people that watch the videos in a live stream that they really wanted to see how I did things. And so I'm going to try and take the time to show you exactly how I do it. So you can put the video on fast speed if that's too boring for you, or you can jump along to a chapter that you think might be more interesting, the part that you might need a little help with. With that, let's go ahead and get started in the detailed walkthrough of Lightburn Software. So I'm going to first transfer the file from vCarve, show you how to do that, and then I'm going to go step by step in Lightburn after I import it in there. So let's go. The first thing I want to do is take the vectors that are in this file and take them over to Lightburn. So I'm going to hit Control A or Command A if you're on a Mac and you're using it, or you could select them all. Then you want to go over here to File, Export, and I'm going to export it as an SVG. And the reason I like to export it as an SVG is because it carries all the layer information with it, which will make setup of the engraving and cutting files easier in Lightburn. Save that, and now it's in my folder that I want to call back, and now that's all I need to do in vCarve, and I'm going to go over to Lightburn. I've opened up Lightburn, and the first thing I want to do is import my vectors. Go to Eastertomb YT version, open, and those are the vectors I used. And they're all in their vectors over here, which will become handy later. The first thing I need to do is set up my slots. Move this angel out of the way here for now. And we'll start setting up the slots. The way I'm going to set up the slots for this plywood project is slightly different than I did in vCarve. In vCarve, I put all of these together, including the boulder, in one slot, and I'm not convinced that's going to work real well. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to make this middle boulder not go into a slot, be more of a support, and these other two boulders will go into a slot along with the sliding boulder. So that's how I'm going to set that up in this file. So the first thing I need to do is I need to make some rectangle, and I'll start with the big boulder, and I'll make it the same. I'm going to make it the same width as this big boulder. Now, as far as height, which is the slot thickness, the thickness of the wood, what I'm going to do is make that, unlock this, 0.19 inches from some previous measurements. You will have to test your slots for each time you make this material. And I'll do some actual slot testing before I finally cut out the real slots in the base. So that's going to take care of this boulder. The next boulder I need to take care of then is going to be this boulder here. But before I do that, I need to have space between those two slots for this middle boulder. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one here again. And I'm going to hit Command D, which is going to duplicate it. Then I'm going to take my arrow key and just move it down for just a second. And I'm going to bring it, this is just going to be for a guide, I'm going to bring it now up to lock with that other one so that they're locked in, just like that. And I'm not really caring whether these are aligned with the smaller boulder at this time. And just so I don't get confused, I'm going to make that a tool layer. Then I'm going to take this again, and I'm going to duplicate it again, Command D or Control D. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to line it up with the other slot so it's right on top of it. Okay, everything looks good. And then once I do that, I'm going to take and I'm going to line it up. I'm going to get a guide out here and I'm going to bring it across. And I'm going to line that guide right there with that boulder. And then I'm going to duplicate that guide, bring it over to the other side. Now I'm going to take this slot and I'm going to bring it down to match that guide. Guides are a new tool that was added to Lightburn in the last upgrade, and I think it's pretty cool because I like to use them just like I like to use them in vCarve. So now what we have is this boulder is going to go in this slot, this boulder is going to go in this slot, and now we need to set up a slot for this boulder here, which is the rolling boulder. So this boulder, if you recall, hold down the shift key, is going to be the one that moves back and forth. So to get that slot right, what we need to do is I need to come over and we're going to pull a guide here. Just about right there. And then I'm going to take the boulder and I'm going to duplicate it, Control D or Command D, hold the shift key, and I'm going to bring it over to the other side here so that it clears the cave. See, that's the cave right there. And then I'm going to take this guide and I'm going to come over here, and now I have my guides for my slots for the boulder. So now what I need to do is I need to make another one of these, Command D or Control D, whatever you're using. Bring this down. Lock it right on top of the other one. And again, after we test the slots, there might need to be a little adjustment here. Now I'm going to move this up to match that guide. I'm going to move this over here to match this guide. Alright, and now that rock should be able to slide back and forth between those spans. And what we've got here is, this should be right on top here, each of these now should be 0.190 in height, and then the width of the boulder. Okay, that works. Now, I no longer need these guides. I don't need this extra boulder. And I don't need this slot, but it may come in handy later, so I'm going to save it off to the side for a minute. And now I want to group these slots because they're in the positions that I want them to be. So I'm going to hit Command G or Control G for group, depending on which computer you're using. Now they're all grouped up together, and I want these two slots to be together. So the way to do that then is to come in here, zoom in, and this can sometimes be a little tricky. I'm going to try to select them both, but I'm not sure that's going to work. And let's hit Weld. That's not selected because they're not overlapping that way, but I can make them overlap by doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and ungroup it. So now one thing you'll notice is because these are what they call primitives, there are no nodes. So I want nodes in this to be able to use. So I'm going to take this and change this by going to Edit, Convert to Path. So now that I converted it to a path, if I select it and I hit Edit Nodes, what I can do is I can take this node and this node, or I could have reached down with the inclusive box, got both nodes, and then what I can do is I'm just going to take my cursor key and move those nodes just slightly into the other box. Select, and then if I select both of these, all I have to do is hit the weld and they'll become one vector, which makes it very easy to connect them. So now let's group these again, hitting the Command G or Control G, whichever you use. And we have our basic slots. The only slots that we still need to do then are for these ladies and the angels. So I'm going to take these slots, ungroup them, and I'm going to take this one, and this one, and I'm going to not want those in the future, so I'm just going to move them up here. I'm going to rotate each of them so that I can get a good measurement on them. And so now I know that this is going to be, resize it, 0.190, 0.190. I'll take this one here and I'll rotate it. 0.190. Notice that I'm not locked, so only one parameter is changing at a time. And I'll take this one and I'll rotate it. 0.190, lock it, and now I can take each of these slots, move them a little bit closer, because that's what they were in my other one, and I can, so now I can take this and I'll delete these, then I'll take these here, I'm going to put them all in the same cut layer, which is a cut layer, and I'm going to group these, and I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them over here. All right, and now what I want to do is I want to make this stepping stone a little bit narrower. I will take and put that in the node edit mode, and I'll come across and select those vectors, and I'll take my arrow key and just bring it down by eye, say somewhere around there, that vector. And I'm going to hit delete or D to delete that vectors. Nodes, I mean, not vectors, but nodes. So now I have a nice clean base stand. Let's see if I can hit select and see if there's anything I can do to get the number of nodes optimized. So come into edit, hit optimize selected shape, and let's see what it looks like with the number of nodes. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to hit OK. So now I've optimized the number of nodes. Now let's go over here. The slots, of course, were set up. So let's make it straight. So the slots on these were set up so that they would fit a half-inch piece of ply. So this straight area is a half-inch. The actual thickness of the wood is about 0.197 or slightly more. So I'm going to change this to 0.197. A reference vector, so I'm going to put down here real quickly 0.197, and that's going to be how thick I want each of the bottom pieces to be on these smaller angels and so forth. Up here it really doesn't matter much because they'll be sticking out just a little bit, but they look like the mountain. So I'm not worried about changing the size of the mountains or the rolling boulder, but these are a little different. I want these to be closer and not sticking way up. So I'm going to make this a tool path for now, and I'm going to take this over here, select it, and I'm going to take it right at the bottom of the angel's curves, right there. And I'm going to select this, hit node edit, and it won't work because it's a grouped vector, so I need to select it, and then I need to ungroup it by Command U or Control U or hitting that section. Now if I hit node, you can see there's some nodes there. I'm going to grab those, and I'm going to take those, I'm going to hold the shift key and take those nodes straight up to there. And notice the number of nodes that we have here. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this out of the way for a second, and I'm going to hit Edit, Optimize Selected Shapes. And remember the many nodes that were there? There's less now, so I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to take this one, this vector, and this vector, this vector, and this vector, if you recall, and this vector. They were all the vGroove bits if you saw my other video. If you haven't, go look at the video at the link above that I'll put in the card and down in the description. And I'm going to put those as what I'll call lines, and they're going to be scoring. So let me change that right now. That's going to be 100, 25, 20. So now I have those on scoring, and the outside of the angel is going to be a cut. So I'm going to set that up as a cut. And then I'm going to go do the same thing to the women. Okay, now that they're all squared away, we'll come in here, we'll set up the pedestal portion of them. Remember to hold the shift so it comes up nice and straight. Okay, that's good. Got to now take it out of node mode, and now we'll go ahead and optimize those shapes. Looks like a reasonable number of nodes. Hit OK. Now I'm going to take the parts that were scored with the B bit. Selecting 01 up here. The outer parts that I'm going to cut. And then I'm going to check these vectors a little closer now. And you can see I'm going to hit take them into node mode, and I'm going to take this vector, although it doesn't really matter much because it's just going to cut past and it'll be cut off. But this vector here I don't quite like, so we're going to put it right there. And this vector here we're going to put right here. Select over here. We got those vectors cleaned up now the way we want them. These slots are all set the right slot size. Let me slide that out of the way. I didn't bring over the cross with this. I'll make the cross here in a minute. Let me take these boulders now and separate those apart. Think back to the beginning of this video where I said I may not put textures on these boulders, and that I probably wouldn't. But I mentioned I would go ahead and show you how to apply the textures if you wanted to apply the textures. So that's what this next part of this video is about. If you don't want to apply textures to your boulder or Easter open tomb scene, this part of the video where I'm applying textures won't matter, and you can jump to the next section. The design is pretty much done at this time. The only thing I need to add is the textures, as I just stated a few seconds ago in this video. If you have learned some things that maybe you didn't learn before and you appreciate the effort put into making these kind of videos, I'd really appreciate a like, thumbs up down there for you to share this video or comment on this video. That will help my channel grow, and it will encourage me to make more videos like this. If you think I'm putting too much detail in it, go ahead and let me know. I warned at the beginning I was going to make a very detailed video for those that are just learning Lightburn primarily, or for those that have been using it for a while and would like some new tips and tricks. I know that many people don't like to go through these long tutorials, and I really debate on whether I put them out or not, but decided that I would go ahead and do so. If you enjoy those kind of tutorials, please let me know in the comments so I know how to gauge my future videos and what effort I put into it. Also, if you would like to see further videos when I put them out on either 3D printing, my CNC work with vCarve, or Lightburn, let me know by subscribing and hitting that all bell, and that will also help me grow my channel. With that, let's go ahead and get into the rest of this video where I go through how I apply the material textures, as I call them, and also how I make the cross. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I am going to give this file away for those of you that have stuck it out this long in the video and would like to have it to cut on your own. If you want that, then just go ahead and go to my website. There is a link down in the video description or the more section that I'll put in there, and enter the coupon code Easter. Enter the coupon code Easter and you will get this file for free. You will see a price on the file when you go to the website, but entering the coupon code at checkout will get it for you for $0. Now it's time to bring in the textures I developed in a previous video. What you see me doing is lining up the textures and then going ahead and deleting the texture holder for Now each of these are going to be cuts in just a second, but I want to do one thing, and remember this middle boulder is going to be less high than the other boulders. Let's just come over here real quick and lay them on top of each other. All I'm doing is laying these exactly on top of each other, and you'll see why in just a second. So remember, this middle boulder is going to be the width of the wood up. And I did that previously with this slot here, you might recall, which I made 0.197 the width of the wood. So I knew there was a reason I would hold on to that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that slot back over here, and I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the wood here. And I'm going to drag it, holding the shift key and dragging it across, and I want this gray left on. So I'm going to turn off the blue vectors. That leaves the gray stone. I'm going to take this stone and I'm going to select it. I'm going to turn the node mode on. Oh, it can't be grouped. You got to ungroup it. Turned it off. Turn the group mode off, you saw. And so now I'm going to take all of these vectors, nodes, excuse me, I call them vectors, I meant nodes. And now that I've got all those nodes made, I'm going to hit the shift key and I'm going to move them. Hopefully I got them all up. Looks like I missed one here. Select that node, bring it up. So that's all above the thickness of the wood now. Come back over here and we'll move that vector out of the way again. So now we're going to have that shorter. Now I'll turn this one back on, and you can see that the other boulders are the thickness of the wood longer than that boulder. So that's going to work out just right. And if I bring this over then, and now you can see I just want to do one last check and make sure that this lines up just like I want it to. Looks like it does. Take a measurement. All right, I think we're good. So now let's set it up for cuts. And we'll make a quick star here since I didn't bring one over. We're going to go ahead and Command D or Control D, and I'm going to use the period key to turn it. Then I'm going to move this straight up to there. Then I'm going to take and reduce the size of this. Let's see here, right now it's 4 inches, and I'm gonna reduce it down to, say, let's try 2 inches at first, about half the size. And so we want to make it 2 inches. We want it to do it in the center, so we don't want this to change. We want 2 inches. That looks, maybe make it 2.25 inches. I like that better. Now that we have that centered and everything, I can get rid of this. Click on it, hit delete. I'm going to take these two vectors and I'm going to weld them, and now we have our cross. And this may need a little adjustment because of the fact that it is, like I said, going to be a little narrower because of the curve. So let's go through and change the vectors now. This is going to be a cut vector. This is going to be a cut vector. We ungroup this one. This one here will be a cut vector. Ungroup this one, cut vector. All right, the only other thing is this text right here, and I want that to be a different one altogether. I'm going to go with 2 because I want that to be an engrave. Let me check my library for engrave, birch plywood. I will go ahead and, it's good, I'm going to assign that right now to that one right there. So I just assigned my library to that, and we'll see how that turns out. Now I want to turn around and take this down to the last. So the first one I have is a score, then I have an engrave, and then I have the cut. Let's just go check our vectors. So scoring vectors all make sense, engraving vectors all make sense, and now the cutting vectors all make sense. Well, that's it. We've gone through all of the instructional material. If you want to go cut your own Easter open tomb on your laser, you should have the tools to do it, and you'll have the Lightburn file. What you won't have is the process I went through for fine-tuning those slots. So you'll have the initial draft slot sizes that I put in based on some caliper measurements. I will say that I had to take about 2 or 3 practice cuts to get the slots exactly tuned in the way I want them. And if you would like to see how I go about that process of doing the practice slot cuts, taking it in and out of the laser and that kind of thing, let me know in the comments section, and I will definitely do another video. But if there's not really any interest in that because people feel like they know how to do that already, I'm not going to take the time to make a video. I'm going to move on to my next video. With that, I do hope you learned a trick or two while you were watching the video. Once again, I would appreciate a like, comment, or share, and I would really appreciate you subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, smashing that all bell so that you are aware when future videos come out, and that you share this information with others. With that, have a great day, have a great life, until we meet in this medium again.